I'm Eric Loy, and welcome to Eric Loy Interviews. On this podcast, we talk with folks from the VTuber community on their channels, their talents, their stories, where they come from, and their plans for the future. We are joined by Star Traveler. Hello.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you coming on. Please introduce yourself for everybody.
So, hello everybody. My name is Star Traveler VT, better known as Starry. I am an interstellar traveler, if you couldn't tell by the name, and I stream primarily on Twitch and YouTube.
So when did you get started with streaming as a VTuber?
Well, I've been on and off in the gaming scene for a little while, ever since I was a kid. But I think it was Inugami Korone, and that just completely changed how I viewed streaming. So I decided to go for it in about, I want to say 2021.
And so you've been around for a little while. I mean, you're practically a veteran for,
Yeah.
for
I'm practically a veteran, yeah.
for the
I started
VTubers.
off with the V-Raid model, completely different from what I'm doing nowadays, but
Yeah. And
you know.
when did you switch over to the model you're using now?
That's a good question. I want to say maybe in like 2022, 2023. Late 2022 maybe.
Yeah. So you had a good few months figuring out what you wanted to do with a model. And is this your design?
No, I got my art and design from Weiss TM on Twitter.
Okay. So we give
Or no, it's Weiss Art now. It's Weiss Art now, my bad.
we'll give them the credit for sure, and you can also
Yeah.
see the credits on Starry's X page, Twitter page, if you want to check that out.
Yeah.
And we will have all of the links for Starry stuff up on the description for the interview here on the YouTube channel. We already talked about why did you decide to do VTubing? Was it because of the VTuber you saw, or was it something you were really inclined to do before you started?
It was actually, so it's a long story, but I'll condense it down as much as possible. Ever since I was a kid, maybe in middle school, I've been obsessed with virtual idols. So things like Hatsune Miku or Gorillas or even Studio Killers. I was obsessed with like people who would take on the personas of cartoons or even of different costumed members and just perform for other people, whether it be music or streaming in this case. And once I realized that VTubing was an outlet where you could do that, that just changed my mind or changed my life completely. So
that's the first
I knew
time,
I had to pursue it.
That's the first time I've heard the Gorillas mentioned as part of it. But it really, I mean, when you think about it, definitely is. I certainly enjoyed them when they first released their first album. In fact, back in my radio days, I used Clint Eastwood as some of my music on my show.
Clint Eastwood is a very popular one, but my favorite album by them is actually Plastic Beach, probably. Either that or what's the one with Humility on it? The Now Now. It's a tie.
Okay. Yeah, it's tough to because they do lots of different types of genres of music, and they have, of course, people who don't realize what we're talking about. Check out the Gorillas with the Z online and listen to their music, and you'll realize that there's a lot of gorillas.
There's so much. There's so much to go down.
Many gorillas to watch and listen to. But were you somebody who wanted to entertain people when you were younger, or were you shy to get up on that stage?
It's actually funny because I do have like a little bit of social anxiety when it comes to talking to people, but that almost completely goes away when I go on stage or start performing in front of like other people. And I can't really understand why. I think it's the fact that that I'm playing someone who's not me in a sense, if that makes sense.
Oh, it makes a lot of sense, actually. You're a little less conscious of showing yourself to be criticized or that type of thing. And I can definitely see that. I worked in radio for a long time and talked to sometimes thousands of people on on the radio, but you get me in front of 10 people, and I didn't want to do it at all. It's
Exactly, exactly.
yeah, and I don't want to see them. I just want to talk to them. Okay, they
Yeah.
need to see me either. So when you decided to make this jump, um was it easy for you to transition into that, or was it something that you jumped in the deep end a little before you knew what you were going up against?
I definitely jumped in the deep end a little bit.
Right.
I had a whole debut and I haven't really done a re-debut yet. That's kind of in the works right now.
Mm-hmm.
But but basically from learning about VTubers to becoming a VTuber myself was maybe about 2 months,
Mm-hmm.
which is really not a lot of time. But I did try to do as much research and like get as much information as I could in that time. I guess I just kind of became obsessed with VTubers.
Yeah.
And I wanted to become one so bad.
Yeah.
So
Was it easy for you to settle in and with, say, a chat of your own?
it was a bit difficult just because before then I had mostly done Let's Play videos on YouTube.
Right.
Um, so I didn't really have before then I didn't have a chat to really interact with. It was just mostly me talking to myself.
Right.
Um,
But when they
but
came in, were you able to incorporate them into what you were doing, or was it just a little tough for you to get used to it?
um, that's a good question. It was a little tough to get used to at first. But after a while you kind of just realize, oh, they're people I can play off of, if
Mm.
that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And once you get kind of accepted both ways at that level, it makes it a lot easier. And
Yeah.
now more comfortable, I imagine, for you. Um, n-
Much more comfortable.
Now you have a tremendous voice. Uh,
Oh, thank you.
have you been approached about voice acting?
I have not. One of my friends is actually trying to break into voice acting right now, and he sent me a few things about like, oh, you should try out for this thing. And I was like, maybe, but I'm actually kind of self-conscious about my voice, to be honest.
Oh,
I feel like it's a little high pitched
mm-hmm.
and like maybe just I don't know, not annoying. I don't want to go that far, but
Well,
I've always been
you have to hear it all
not
the
to
time, so
not yeah.
yeah.
So, it's always that you probably know what I'm talking about when I say, it's the difference between hearing it through yourself, like
Mm-hmm.
through your own head,
Right.
and hearing it through a machine.
Right, right. It definitely does
Yeah.
make a difference. I absolutely hate hearing myself back.
Hmm.
Don't much like hearing myself to start, but but you get used to that. But I think you've got one of those voices that 40 years down the line, you're still going to sound the same,
Probably.
and you'll still be able once if you get involved in something like that, you'll still be able to do the same type of characters. It really has that kind of pure tone to it that I think
Oh,
they
thank
go
you.
after. So go for it. That's what I'm saying. Um, as
Maybe I will. Maybe I
it
will after this.
yeah it really is. It's the type of voice that I would back in the day say, hey, you want to try a little radio and not make any money? And you hopefully you would say, no, get away from me.
It's actually really funny because I used to want to be a radio host when I was a kid.
Ah,
I used to want to go into podcasting.
oh
So
well, you can still do it. I mean, the
I
podcasts are
could still do
there,
it.
and you probably make more money at it because radio don't pay nothing these
Yeah.
days. That's for sure. Uh,
Yeah.
with getting your channel up and going, what was the first thing that you broadcast? Was it just an introduction? Did you jump into a game? What'd you do?
I did a debut,
Mm.
where I had a slideshow made, and well, I made my own slideshow.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I introduced myself. I was like, "Hey, my name is Starry." I actually have changed my lore since then.
Yeah.
Um, I used to be an alien, and now I am a star. I
Yeah.
think it makes more sense considering the name, if you ask me.
Well, absolutely.
Um, but and then I ended up playing a game called Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, which is one of my favorite games ever made, but also may not be the most stream friendly game I've ever played on stream.
Wow.
Uh, because it is a walking simulator. There is no gameplay, there are no puzzles. You are just walking and experiencing the story. And again, I love it to death, but it may have been better suited for something else.
That is interesting.
Maybe like a video.
I haven't heard of that before, but I can imagine it'd be sort of a horror type game in a way.
It is. I've actually heard people refer to it as what's it called? Like an eldritch horror kind of game, which I can definitely see.
Yeah. Well, I think I would be very interested. I'm gonna have to look that up and see what it's all about. These days, what are the types of games that you're playing?
My main niche I found is mostly indie horror games. Or just horror games in general. So, for instance, I've played Inscryption and Eve, Witch's House. Recently, I played Still Wakes the Deep, which is actually made by the same people who made Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. So that was a treat.
So tell me what that one's about.
Still Wakes the Deep lives with me.
Yeah, tell me about that.
It is about a man named Kaz, and he is on an oil rig in the 1970s off the coast of Scotland, I believe. And one day they dig too deep and they find something that maybe they should have left alone. And that's really all I'll say, because it's a beautiful game. I cried at the end. It was so good.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it's one of those games. It makes you feel things.
It really makes you feel things. Those are the kind of games that I like. I love story-driven games, and I'm actually in school right now studying screenwriting so that I can potentially one day make my own games or even just a movie or something like that.
So have you always been a writer?
I've been a writer since high school.
Yeah.
And that was a while ago, so.
Well, last year, yeah. I mean, you're a very young star.
I'm a very young star.
Yeah, that's right.
No. But I started off writing in small role play communities. And then I kind of expanded into writing short stories and scripts, and now I'm just trying to get some of my ideas off the ground so that I can actually like put them in action, you know?
Oh, I'm so jealous. I really am. I mean, someone who can actually jump that level from having something rattling around in their head to putting it down on the paper and writing it. I'm very jealous because I can't. I get started every once in a while on some things, but then I just like, oh, I got something else to do, and I never get back to it.
No, I feel that.
Yeah. So, what type of short stories have you written?
So the short story class that I was a part of way back when was mostly focused on the idea of trauma, which is always a great start.
Yeah.
So I mostly wrote tragedies, and nowadays I also write like horror and comedies and stuff. I'm trying to branch out a little bit, but I mostly specialized in like, dramas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Start off with a science fiction, and it ends up everybody's dead. Tragedy.
Tragedy.
Everything was going well.
Tragedies.
Everything going well, and then the planet exploded. Tragedy.
Tragedy. You get a tragedy, and you get a tragedy.
That's right. Everybody gets their own. So, how do you get your ideas for writing?
That's a very good question. It's actually funny. Sometimes I get my ideas from dreams that I've had. One of my main ideas actually came from a dream that I had, and I don't want to go too in depth about it because I would like to make it into something one day.
Yeah, copyright.
And I changed the idea. Copyright, NDAs, blah blah blah. Hollywood.
Yep.
Yeah, I've gotten a few ideas from my dreams. I've also found ideas through maybe this will sound bad, but other people's content, like sometimes that inspires me and I'm like, what if this happened instead?
Well,
What
then,
if it took place in a different era?
yeah. Oh no, there's
Stuff
nothing
like
wrong with
that.
that whatsoever. That's inspiration. That's not copying. That's adopting
Yeah,
and adapting.
exactly.
It's completely. If everybody worried about every bit of copying, nothing would ever get done. Because I
Yeah.
mean, you can't just make something up out of whole cloth completely, unless you're completely nuts like I am. But the the
Yeah.
the fact that you're able to do that and think in I call it thinking in three dimensions, where you're not
hmm
thinking just left, right, black, white, up, down. You're adding depth to it, and that always makes a better story.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. So you're able to do that now. There is also a difference between writing and doing artwork, doing things on your own, and showing it to people. That's
hmm
that's a that's a big hurdle for a lot of folks. Was that a hurdle for
It
you?
is. It is. It's very much this piece of writing is my baby. I've
Mm.
worked really hard on it. I've put a lot of thought, energy, time into it, and I really care about it. And sometimes getting criticism or feedback can hurt. And I absolutely know it is a very important part of the process. You can't have a great product without going back and looking at it and being like, oh, this could be different, this could be different, this could be different.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
it's also just, it's a matter of like trying to be like, this is my baby, but it's also not perfect yet.
Mm.
It's not where I want it to be yet.
Mm. That's the old artist thing coming out, where you always got to tweak it.
Exactly.
Got to tweak it a little bit. I didn't want to use that quite phrase. I want to let's say if I can work this phrase into it instead. There's there,
Yeah.
it's your baby, but you haven't dressed it completely yet. Yeah. But when somebody else reads what you've put down, what you've worked on, and is a part of you, really, as what art is to artists, um,
hmm
and you get positive feedback from that, how does that affect you?
I love positive feedback. It is my favorite thing. But I love writing, especially in the writer's room, because it is a collaborative experience. You have like a bunch of people sitting around and we're all tossing ideas at each other and I'm not officially in a writer's room yet, but I was in a class last semester actually, where it was essentially a modified writer's room.
Right.
And we were all throwing ideas at each other and we were like, this could be funny, this could be funny. It was a comedy class.
Mm-hmm.
And like sometimes people's ideas do work better, and you kind of got to accept that into yourself and be like, you're right. I think this would be better.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, that does help if you can put everybody's ego aside
hmm
and realize that it's a brainstorming session and you're using everybody's brain. Um, that could be something. But I have to ask: is there times where you get your ego in the way?
I mean, I'm an artist. Of course, there are times when when my ego gets in the way a little bit. Sometimes I will be like, "This piece of advice is stupid," and I know better than this person, obviously. And then I turn it in for an assignment or for whatever,
Hmm.
and it's just like, actually, you should have done what this person said. I was like, okay, I've like that happened once to me actually.
Oh,
That's happened a few times, but it happened. I specifically remember I had a friend. And this was for my first screenwriting class ever, and they were like, "You put a lot of descriptions in your screenwriting. You should probably lessen that." I was like, "What are you talking about? This is perfect." And I
yeah,
turned it in, and my screenwriting professor was like, "Actually, no. You should lessen the amount of description in here."
yeah,
So that
yeah.
was kind of a wake up call.
That's gonna be a bit of a slap. Like, hey, no,
Yeah,
this is
just
the
a
way I
tiny
do it.
bit.
Now, you're also talking about a field that the instructors are having to use their own opinions a lot of time on what you do.
hmm
Art classes, no matter what art you take, is sometimes like that. Is that tough to take
Yeah,
sometimes when your vision doesn't match their vision?
it can be sometimes. And I think that goes for like all art
Hmm.
in that like obvious again, it is very much a this is my baby. I worked really hard on this. But I think that it's like these professors obviously know more than I do. And maybe sometimes they don't, but like they usually do. They usually are veterans in this field. They know what they're talking about.
Hmm.
So usually I'm just like, okay, I will put my trust in you and I will adjust my screenplay accordingly,
Hmm.
but I will not be happy about it.
Meanwhile, your foot's
So
tapping underneath the desk.
yeah, sometimes you got to do what you got to do for a grade.
And
You
then
can always go back and fix it later.
that's right. That's a great way to put it. Has that carried over into your streaming, where what you're putting out in the stream is, and to the chat and to the audience, that this is your vision, your baby, um, and then you have the same type of pride that you would be in a writing.
It's very funny. Because I recently got a manager this year
Mm.
and he's been wonderful. He's been amazing, a big help. And he has had me change my stream in a few ways where I'm just like, I don't know. But then I do it and it works. So it's very much again, it's like it's exactly what I've said before. It's my baby, but also sometimes you gotta change your baby.
Yeah,
Gotta change your baby a little bit just to, make it more palatable to other people.
well, and you have to change the diaper for sure every once in a while because
For every once in a while,
yeah,
yes.
yeah, for everybody's sake,
Nobody likes a stinky baby.
please, please, please do that. But that's a great attitude to have because it is really hard when you've worked on something like this. It's something as personal as art, whether it's writing or
Hmm.
drawing or painting or computerized art, and to get somebody thinking, and I bet this happens uh, sometimes when you're playing a game too. You get sometimes backseat folks. If
Hmm.
you just held your gun like this, it would be a lot easier. How do you keep from telling them to take a long walk off a short pier?
I feel, I- okay, maybe this is tooting my horn a little bit, but I feel I am a very nice person. And maybe to the detriment of myself, in which sometimes people will come into the stream and be like, you should do this instead of this. And I just smile and I nod and I'm like, okay, whatever you say. And then, I have trouble telling them off sometimes. And that
Mm,
is something that I am working on a little bit. But for the most part, usually the rule is no backseat gaming unless I ask for it my community is very small right now.
hmm.
So also it's a lot of like regulars who know me and know how I like to game. So
Right.
it's usually not much of an issue. But if it does become an issue, I've been working on being like, it does say no backseating in the rules.
We're gonna make you mean by the time we're done
I like to see you try.
here. Come on, yell at
People have been
them.
trying to make me mean. People have been trying to make me mean for years. It has not worked.
uh, yeah, well, we'll just have to keep poking you until the bear shows up. Now, it's great to hear that you've got such a great attitude for it and an aptitude for it too. But it sounds like it's very easy to. First of all, it's been extremely easy to talk with you here, and I thank you for that. But
Of course.
easy to interact with you on this as well. And for someone who had a little bit of anxiety, um, I don't hear it. uh, which you said maybe it would be different if we were sitting in the same room, but has the ability to be online and interact with people affected your offline life?
Honestly, not really. I've made a lot of, I mean, it really depends. I made a lot of friends online, and I actually find it a lot easier to make friends online than offline. And I think that's because online you have, especially as a VTuber, I have this sense of anonymity
Mm-hmm.
where I don't have to show my face. I don't have to worry about like putting on makeup or anything like that.
Hmm.
I can just be this avatar that that was created by Weiss Art, and I don't have to worry too much about like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think that really helps. In real life, it's a lot harder for me to make friends, honestly. It's definitely something I'm working on again, but yeah, for the most part, being online hasn't really affected my ability to make friends in real life. It's just more so of a it's just more so of a sometimes I feel more comfortable on the internet than I do in real life, if that makes
Oh,
sense.
that makes all the sense in the world. Have you got any big plans coming up for your channel? Yeah, I know you're talking about a re-debut eventually. But
Eventually, that's still in the works a little bit, but for now, I actually have a subathon coming up. It's going to
yes.
be a 12-hour subathon
Oh my.
on September 7th, I believe.
All right.
That's the day we're working with for now. We've had to change it 3 times so far. I'm really hoping we don't have to change it again.
Uh,
Um,
September 7th. Mark that down, folks, and we'll have the uh,
Mark that
yeah,
down.
mark that down, and sooner or later, Star, you'll change it, so you'll have to mark it down again.
Hopefully not. Hopefully not.
It's again, it's very tough sometimes for people who actually have uh, you know, somewhat chaotic lives to get a schedule down and keep to it.
Hmm.
It's not the easiest
Yeah.
thing in the world.
Especially as a full-time student, because again, I am a student full-time, so
Yeah, you've been able to keep it separate to the point where one is not where the streaming isn't affecting your uni stuff, is it?
I've actually done a really good job at that. There are some times where I will be like, "Hey, I'm sorry, everybody. I've got a midterm in like 12 hours. I don't think I can stream today." I've been pretty good at keeping it separate for the most part, which I'm actually very proud of
Yeah,
because usually it's not that easy for me to keep hobbies separate from school,
right.
but I've done a really good job with this. So
Yeah. Well, it sounds to me like you've got a great thing going, and you've got a really good
yeah,
mindset for it. And I really do appreciate what you're bringing to the table here with it. It uh, it it
thank you.
it shows that you're again. I mentioned thinking in three dimensions. Um, you've thought a little bit outside the box occasionally, and to your benefit. Um,
Hmm.
Now, what do you eventually want to do with the channel? I mean,
That is a really
you want to keep
That's a really
going
good
while you're
question.
while you're writing Oscar-winning screenplays?
I think my biggest dream right now. So, I have you heard of the movie Past Lives by Celine Song?
No, but I'm
Okay.
I'm an old
Well,
man who's
long
sheltered.
story it's okay. Celine Song was a playwright, and now she's a movie director
Mm,
and writer.
yeah.
But before then, during COVID, she actually managed to put on a play in The Sims, a play rendition of The Seagulls by Anton Chekhov.
Oh,
And my biggest dream, my dream out of all the dreams that I have is to write a play and put it on in VR chat and make it publicly accessible.
that
I think that would be super cool.
that would be really neat. That really would be.
Yeah.
And given the technology today, that's very, very possible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I feel like plays are very inaccessible right now.
Hmm.
Or not very inaccessible. They're more accessible than they used to be.
Yeah.
But there's still somewhat of a barrier around them. And I would like to if you've heard of StarKid, I would like to be able to make plays and then put them online for other people to see so that they're not just for the people who can make it in person.
That's
I think
that's
that'd be fun.
that is I like that idea a lot. I really do.
Mm.
Again, that's thinking ahead of the game, and I think you've got that in spades here. Um,
Thank you.
it's good to hear that you've got that going on. If there's anything we can do to help promote what you've got going on, let me know, and we'll get you back on
Of
again.
course.
And again, folks, remember, as of right now, September 7th,
Hmm. September 7th at, I believe, 2 p.m. EST start time.
Mark that down in very dark pencil. just in case. But it's September 7th, about 2 p.m., a 12-hour 12-hour broadcast. You got, I mean,
12-hour broadcast.
You are a student, so you should be able to do 12 hours, I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now 24.
And plus, it's a weekend, and I'll have 2 days afterwards to recover.
There you go. There you go. Starry, it's an absolute pleasure to talk with you, and I do appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Nothing but the best going forward. And it sounds like you've got a really good plan. And thank you for sharing what you've got with everybody else here. It's one of the best things about this medium is that we get to hear from people that maybe we normally wouldn't get to hear from. And
exactly.
I thank you for that. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me on, and I hope you and the rest of your viewers have a wonderful time zone.
Thank you for listening to Eric Loy Interviews. Join us again next time when we talk to another member of the always interesting VTuber community.